Alright, so Oklahoma is not necessarily the most interesting place to live. I know this because I visited OKC where my brother lives, and it's super freaking boring. There are a few things that you need to know before you plan a visit to Oklahoma. It has a surprisingly hipster area with whiskey bars and gastropubs. The rib places are amazing. Oh, and a shitload of earthquakes happen there. And a lot of very intelligent people who know more about this than I do think it's caused by fracking. But let's talk about what fracking is for a second. Now, fracking is the process of drilling into the earth and releasing a high-pressure water mixture directed at the rock to release the gas inside. This process can be carried out either vertically or horizontally, like they do, by drilling into the rock layer and creating new pathways, or by elongating existing ones. Now, fracking is a very controversial subject, but there are definitely some advantages to fracking. It is without a doubt this extraction process boosts domestic oil production and drives down gas prices. By some estimations, fracking has offered gas security to the US and Canada for the next century and has presented an opportunity to generate energy with 50% less greenhouse gases by displacing coal-powered plants. But there is a serious cost to pumping the ground full of sedimented water. In this instance, the environment keeps footing the bill. For starters, fracking causes methane leaks, which essentially wipes out any greenhouse gas benefits that may be caused by using natural gas instead of coal. Opponents also claim that fracking is simply shifting the conversation away from renewable energy sources while continuing our reliance on fossil fuels, and there are a lot of lobbying behind this. And fracking also contaminates groundwater through accidents or contamination near the surface, like when wells blow up in North Dakota or when chemicals seep into the water supply, even when perfectly built steel and cement pipes, like the case being studied in Wyoming currently by the EPA. The second part of the problem is with the wastewater that's produced after it's been used to crack open shale and pump back to the surface. This water is either pumped back into injection wells or stored in tanks that leave them vulnerable to accidental spills. Or sometimes the treatment facilities simply dump them into the Allegheny River because fuck you. And perhaps the scariest result of fracking is the increased seismic activity in regions that already have tectonic movement and an abundance of fault lines. Now, this activity is currently being looked into and isn't linked to the fracking itself, but rather the wastewater that's pumped back into underground injection wells. As water pressure builds up in these wells, rocks can shift around, which can trigger a tremor if said shifting occurs near a geologic fault, even when these faults haven't been active for centuries. Fracking itself also causes extremely small earthquakes that the US Geologic Survey has deemed too small to be a safety concern. But the same study by the USGS has found links between the dramatic increase of seismic activity in central and eastern United States and injection sites that may be causing the land to shake. Oklahoma is one of the scarier examples, with over 900 earthquakes in 2015, a grim contrast to the handful of earthquakes of a magnitude of 3 or greater each year before 2008. So whether you're gung-ho about fracking or completely against it, it's undeniable that better evaluation and stricter regulation needs to exist in order to ensure safety. Since our end goal should be to solely rely on zero-emission energy sources, one can view fracking as a small step in the right direction, as it seems like it eliminates some of the harmful CO2 usage. But as scientists are observing a growth in both the number and strength of these injection-induced earthquakes, one should ask the question, is it worth increasing domestic oil production when it compromises water supplies and potentially causes more devastating earthquakes in regions full of inactive fault lines? I'm Hassan Piker, and this is The Breakdown.